Alright. Hello. It's been a little while since I last recorded. I figured it was about time I go ahead and make a new one. So, looking back, looks like my last video was on, let's see, the 16th of May. Right, January, February, March, April, May. Yeah, May 16th, or 15th? Whatever, either way. Mid-May. So what has happened since then? First of all, I started the fourth semester. Third semester's over with now, as you can see in my previous video. So officially in the last academic semester, which is a very interesting feeling. Feels really good, feels really scary at the same time. I feel like right as I've not necessarily like gotten used to things, but right as I've sort of figured it out and caught a groove, everything's going to be changing. And, it's going to be changing for the better, which will be nice. I'm going to be going around to different rotation sites and practicing anesthesia for the majority of my time, as opposed to spending a lot of time in a classroom learning stuff and taking exams. So it'll be an interesting change. I'll talk a little bit more about my feelings about that later. But yeah, that's just the stage I'm at right now. We also don't know our sites yet, so another thing. So, looks like what has changed since then. Yeah, May 16th. So, what do we got? Done quite a bit. Looks like I recorded that. Yep. So we had the incoming classes white coat ceremony. That was really fun to get to help out with and attend. Definitely very weird to go back into it and see the flip side, I guess. When I had my white coat a year ago, it was very odd to see. It just felt weird, I'll be honest, because I was so naive to everything. And I mean, as everyone in that position would be, you don't know what you're getting into and everything like that. I apologize if I'm a little bit blurry. But I don't feel like I got to really sit in the moment and really take it all in. But this time I was able to. That was nice. I also got to behind the scenes look at everything because I know all of the professors, I know the program director, I know basically everybody involved on the production side of things, and I got to help out, and I actually gave a speech. You do that if you're the class president. You're not required to if you're just a regular student, so don't let that hold you back. But it was really fun. It was really fun to kind of have the shoe be on the other foot, if that makes sense. Really cool to help out with that. And it was good to meet them. Then I helped out with their orientation as well. Just, generic stuff like that. Give them a tour and stuff. And, it was nice. I really enjoy helping out other people. Part of why this career I feel like is a good fit for me. But it's really good to... trying to think of the way to word it. It's not bad. I just can't think of how to word it, but I like having gone through an experience and then being able to help guide someone else through that experience, if that makes sense. I think that's the best way I can word it. I like having gone through something, know what it's like, know the journey, and then be able to help that other person go through it themselves. I really like that. So, very glad to help out with the white coat and the orientation as well. What else? So fourth semester, I guess I could just talk about it a little bit. Fourth semester is the last academic semester, like I said. In terms of class load, it's actually simpler than the other courses or the other semesters, which is nice. I feel like I have the most breathing room this semester. The time between exams feels a lot better, as well as just the sheer number of classes. That does feel better. And if you go online and you Google, let me pause and come right back. So if you go to Google and you type in NSU Jacksonville CAA brochure, for me it's the top link, it's a PDF, and that takes you to a page that goes through all the different classes that we're taking. So you can see the breakdown for like semester 1, 2, 3, and 4. On paper, it looks like semester 4 is rough. But I can assure you it's not as bad, thankfully, because some of the chunkier credit hour things are not as in depth. Um, in terms of like, if you look on the schedule, it says clinical anesthesia. That's 3 credit hours, and that's just the time spent in the hospital. Internship, that's if you're TAing or helping out with other stuff like that. So instantly that knocks off 8 credit hours right there. So, and don't get me wrong, that kind of stuff does take the time and effort, but it's not, oh, here's an exam over, 400 slides. It's not like that. So, and it is definitely a nice, needed reprieve. So very happy about that. So that's how this semester is different. We're still, like the third semester, doing clinicals alongside of our academics. So I'm sure you all remember this, and I'm just beating a dead horse here. Academics is 4 semesters. Peer rotations is 3 semesters. And again, this is on the brochure. The first 2 semesters, those are pure academics, nothing else. The second 2 semesters are going to be a mix of academics and clinicals, so you're kind of half and half. The next 3 are only clinicals. So, starting in about August, that's when I'll be moving to my second year rotations, and my updates will either be more frequent or less frequent, I have no idea which. But that's just the overall breakdown. So, for us, the end is in sight, where we can see, okay, we're right on the cusp of clinicals, we're right there, let's just get going. So anyway, long-winded explanation done. Let's see, I've had a few exams. I think I've had 2 exams up to this point now. I mean, the exams don't get any easier. That's just not how it works. Because we're building on the foundation that we've laid for the first 3 semesters. We still use material that was presented in the first semester. That's just how it goes. It's not in the sense pure cumulative where anything is fair game. Like if we learn about something in the first semester, oh, it's going to be on this exam, or it could be. It's not directly like that, but the material overlaps a fair amount. So if we learned in semester 1, oh, isoflurane is a great neuroanesthetic volatile agent. Okay, well, that came up. We've had talks about that in semester 4. So it's not really something that goes away in that sense. But it's not like they're looking back at those slides and like, we can pull that one on them. It's not like that. But the material builds because anesthesia is a very overlappy kind of job, if you would, in the sense that anesthesia is anesthesia. There's only so many ways you can do something. So if you learn about, if I look at these classes right here, I'll just stick with the isoflurane example. We learned about that in Intro to Clinical Anesthesiology for the first time. I believe it came up in EKG, it came up in airway management, came up in pharmacology, came up in instrumentation and monitoring, came up in anesthesia practices and principles. You get the idea. It comes up in a lot of different courses, so it's nice to get it from multiple angles. And I am kind of rambling now, I realize. One interesting thing about this semester is we have a new professor in that our ultrasound is taught online currently. And we do have an in-person portion of it where we are going to go over everything, but this is a professor we've never had before. Semester 3, we had all previous professors. Yep. So semester 3, we've known all the professors. This is the first semester in a little while that we have someone we haven't seen before and haven't taken one of their exams before. So I'm a little bit nervous for that one. And again, that's just the ultrasound course. It's kind of what you would expect. It's just, what nerves are involved if you scan in this area, and what if you numb that branch, what resulting impacts does it have? So, not really sure how to prepare for that one. I'm doing my best. I'm just taking the strategy of studying early and studying often. Actually, that's not true. We have 2 new professors. Our professionalism class, we have not had that professor outside of lab before, so we're getting a first look at that as well. And that's an interesting course as well. It's kind of a different angle on the academic side of things. We're all used to, isoflurane, what's the MAC value? This is more of conceptual and how to handle yourself as a professional in an evolving field, and how it's important to hold yourself in a high esteem while also remaining humble, and how to balance it. That's pretty interesting. I really do enjoy that course. It's a nice change of pace in terms of the learning environment. It's definitely a unique take on things. And the professor's really, if I could speak English, that'd be great. The professor is really nice as well, in the sense of they come from a long background of, everybody in any medical profession is going to have something happen to them that is unprofessional, be it from a patient, from a coworker, from somebody that they are shadowing, or somebody that they have been a preceptor, or someone who has precepted them, etc., etc. It's going to happen to everybody, and I feel like this professor really leverages that experience that they've gone through and is able to articulate it well and explain, okay, here's a scenario. Let's say, I could think of any number of things, but what's just a random one I could think of? A doctor tells you to do something you know is bad. You tried to explain to the doctor why you think it's bad, but the doctor insists you do it anyway. The question that the professor would pose is, how do you handle the situation? And there's no right answer to really any of the scenarios, but it makes you think about how, what really is the best way to approach something like that. How do you check your ego at the door and just do what's best for the patient? It's a question that I couldn't necessarily answer. I could give my interpretation, but there is no one right answer. You could try to talk to the doctor directly again, come up with evidence. You could go to a different doctor, get their take on it, figure out a different doctor who's on the same case that's working on it, find a doctor in the same specialty, talk to them, go over their head, talk to management. There's any different of angles that you could take that one question, and I feel like it's really fun to kind of dissect the logic behind it and come to the conclusion that there is no one conclusion. So I kind of like that. Other class, let's see. Again, I'm just looking at that list, make sure I can say everything. Anesthesia physiology, we've had that course a few times, same professor, really great course. Ultrasound right there, anesthesia practices and principles, we call it APP, really fun. And then lab. Lab is where we're really putting our rubber to the road, and that's kind of the ground zero for humble learning, in my opinion. It's where if you don't know something, you're going to figure it out. And I like that the professors that I've had for lab, they don't make you feel bad for not knowing an answer. They encourage you to learn more, and they encourage you to approach it from a position of trying to grow, rather than, oh, you should have known this, this is basic stuff, shame on you for not knowing this. And I really like that perspective that they take on it. Lab this semester, I think I can say this, is getting more specific. I think I've talked about this before. Semester 1 lab is very broad, overarching topics. And then semester 2 is more of, you're building on that foundation, you're learning some intricacies, you're learning more management. Semester 3, you start to get into really nuanced and, what to do in bad scenarios, how to manage them, things like that. And this semester is really getting into the specialized side of things. So I'm from the mindset where I do like that. It is definitely a departure, though, because stuff that we're learning right now, it's not something I might carry over for a while. So, for instance, we're introducing pediatrics at this point. And depending on where you work, you may do only pediatrics or zero pediatrics. And it's pretty interesting to be sitting there, learning everything, fully understanding that I may use this information once a year, or I may use it every single day. So it's kind of interesting for me to sit there and recognize the importance of it while still being cognizant of the fact that I might not need the information. But again, it's very important to know it. Anything can happen at the drop of a hat. Even if you're at an all-adults facility, an emergency can happen, and you just got to do the best that you can and rely on the knowledge that you've spent so long learning. So don't take this the wrong way and presume that I'm saying, oh, we're learning stuff that's not important. It's incredibly important. It just might not be something I use day to day. And it's kind of interesting to see it like that. So, as a TA, I think this is also a really fun thing I can talk about too. Um, Being a TA, I really like it. I think a few of the students who I TA for with TA4 watch the videos, which is really funny. And I really enjoy that because it means I've accomplished my goal. And my goal was to help and give somewhat of a window into what I've gone through in this, just over a year journey so far. And it's very nice to know that I've been able to help some of them, specifically with the videos and as well as a TA, because as a TA, we're the bridge between the professors and the incoming students. I keep saying incoming students. They are students. I need to stop that. I'll say the first years. We get to bridge the gap between the professors and the first years, and it's really kind of fun to break down the information in our own way. And of course, we keep it factual and we keep it logical and we follow the guidance of the professors. But if we've picked up like a little mini trick that really helped us, for instance, the order of how to put on monitors, or a little trick for putting on the pulse oximeter so it gets a better reading, we can kind of pass those on, and that's really cool to be able to do that. I really do sincerely enjoy it. And one thing it's made me realize, or kind of solidified rather, is that at some point I might consider becoming a professor. I've been told it'd be a good fit. We'll just have to see how everything shakes out, but it's not something I've ruled out, and I think it'd be kind of fun to be able to do that. I mean, of course, everything's fun until it's a job, so we'll see. We'll see. But I think it'd be kind of fun. But I have enjoyed being a TA. It's been nice and fun. And then what else have I been up to? Talked about lab, talked about all the other courses, talked about the professor for ultrasound is not a new professor. They are new to us. I want to clarify that. And then as well as the professor for professionalism. Again, not a new professor, new to us. I want to clear that up. So, pretty nice. Pretty nice. I guess I could talk about what I've been doing in clinicals. Again, for clinicals, to ensure with 110% certainty that I do not violate HIPAA, I do not give away any patient identifiable information. I don't even say what day I did something. All I do is I say what I did. So again, let's just say we had, who's a random person? Let's just say I had Jane Doe as a patient. I wouldn't say any identifiable information that would lead back to them at all. So I'll make that very clear, and I've talked about that in a previous video. So what have I been up to? So my last video was, let's see, May 16th. So what have I been up to since then? Let's go through what I've done. I've done a few, let's see, this day was 3 intubations I got. 1 IV on that day as well, which that one was a pretty fun day. Though that day I had to flip patients prone, and that's a challenge in its own right. And if you've worked in this position or understand the difficulties of that, I'm sure you can sympathize with that the majority of these were prone cases. But a good skill to have. Good skill to have. So that day I got several intubations and then just standard induction, intubation, intra-op management, extubation for that day. This day was similar. This day was a 3-case day as well. Very similar day in terms of what I did. This one I did get to do a full TIVA, which has its own host of challenges and how to manage that. Pretty interesting. Got another IV that day as well. This day, this day I got 2 intubations. One of them was like a full start to finish case. And then one of them was a bump propofol case with an unprotected airway, and I am wording it like that to be generic. Those are challenging cases because if you're bumping propofol, you don't want them too light because they'll have awareness and they may feel pain, may react, and it's not going to be good surgical conditions. Too deep, they can't manage their own airway, and then that has its own host of consequences. So it's pretty interesting to kind of dance that line. Pretty interesting. This day was 2 LMAs and 2 intubations. That day was interesting because this was probably, I think it's the first or second time that I've had a preceptor point blank say, "You gonna be okay if I take the airway on this one?" In the sense of the patient presented in a complex manner, and they would feel more comfortable if they were the one who was in charge of that. And of course I said, by all means, do your thing. But that was pretty interesting. I haven't had too many of those. And I'm sure you're going through many different possibilities that it could have been. But pretty interesting. And those, if you're curious, they were LMA Classics. They were the ones that have the inflatable cuff. They were not high gels. I do not have a ton of experience with the LMA Classics, but I am getting better with it and kind of learning little tips and tricks. This day was again 2 LMAs, 2 endotracheal tubes, which is pretty interesting. This day we also had my first emergent case, which was pretty interesting to see the progression, see doctors talking to each other and consulting each other on the best way to approach a patient in the sense of what's the best way that we can manage this patient. And determining whether or not it was a true emergent case or just an urgent case, that would change the progress of the case. So pretty interesting to get to see that. A very nice and good experience. This day was several unprotected airway with bumping propofol, as well as looks like 2 endotracheal tubes. And then this day was 2 tubes, so 2 intubations, and then one of these patients we had a complication with that was pretty interesting to get to watch the progression of and the treatment plan that my preceptor and the attending developed. I did weigh in on it partially, but, who are they going to listen to? Are they going to listen to the person who's been in the OR a handful of times or the people who have made a lot of money doing it? So, understandable. My input was not ignored, I'll put it like that. It was considered, was talked about. And bits and pieces of it were implemented, which was really nice to see that I helped play a role in that. That was an interesting day. And when I say, I went through intubations and I said, oh, it's a 2 intubation day, what I mean by that is, again, it's the full cascade of pre-op to getting the room ready, to induction, to putting in the tube, intra-op management of vitals, occasionally charting, not super often, extubation, and then PACU and that whole handoff process. I'm not just walking into a room, tubing, and then leaving. I want to make that clear. We are going through the full progression of a case when I just say that offhandedly. So, yeah. That's what I've been up to. I mean, as you can kind of see, I've done a lot of intubations at this point. I've gotten a few more LMAs. I haven't done a huge number of IVs. I am working on trying to get practice with those. If there is one to be done, I'm suggesting or asking if I can do it. I haven't put in an A-line yet on a real person. I also have not done a spinal nor an epidural. A few of my classmates have, but it's not a super common thing depending on where you're at. Some sites, all of the doctors do it. Other sites, CAAs will do it. So it's kind of site dependent for whether or not you'll even be exposed to it. But I'm hoping I get one of those soon. We've done some practice in labs, and I've kind of gone through them on my own and practiced them, so I am prepared if my name does get called, and I would enjoy getting the attempt. So, other than that, we don't know our sites yet for where we're going. In the next update video, you will likely know where I'm going, or I will likely know. I'm probably not going to say where I'm going on here, just because of, hospital stuff. But I will have a better picture, and I'll let you know if I find out. If I don't find out, I'll let you know, but I don't hold your breath for whether or not I'll tell you where I'm going. And with that, that's about all I can think of. So I'll go ahead and wrap this video up here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram at myCAAjourney, no caps, no spaces. And the profile picture will be the same as my YouTube one now that I'm looking at it. So you can also leave a comment on here, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Some days I'm better about it than others. So other than that, I'll go ahead and wrap this video up here. So thank you for watching. Have a good one.